Yo guys, I just saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, so let's talk about it. Towards the end of this video, there are gonna be some spoilers. But with that said, let's just start talking about the movie itself. And boy do I have some thoughts. Indiana Jones is a movie franchise that I grew up with, and I had some mixed expectations going into this movie because I knew if I was expecting like original trilogy quality, then I would just set myself up for a huge disappointment. So I just went in hoping for an enjoyable movie that was at least better than the fourth movie. And in that regard, it fulfilled my expectations. I think most of the movie is very fun to watch. And I'm just gonna say this right off the gate. Harrison Ford, still at age of 80 years old, is still absolutely fantastic. He is just as great as any other movie he's ever been. So, no negatives for Harrison Ford himself. And even for his age, he looks pretty good. And most of the action scenes were pretty fun. It wasn't like original trilogy quality of amazing spectacle, but most of it was pretty well done. There were some pretty decent stunts in this movie. And yes, of course, there's a lot more special effects in these action scenes than in the 80s. And most of it is pretty seamless, but there's the occasional shot that you can see like, yeah, that's green screen or that's CGI. And there are a couple of shots where Indy is riding a horse, where in some scenes you can tell that it's Harrison Ford's face just put on a stuntman. But unfortunately, when we're talking about the side characters, I'm not a huge fan. The Phoebe Waller-Bridge character, I didn't like her all that much, especially in the beginning, when she kind of just talks down to Indy, and her motivations I didn't like that much, with her only being after money. And even her sidekick, Teddy, I also didn't find that compelling, and it's just kind of a knockoff short round. And he even has an almost identical backstory with him trying to pick her pocket when he was about 10 years old, which is pretty much the exact same story how Indy met Shorty in the Temple of Doom. However, this movie does also have a lot of really nice callbacks to the original trilogy that I, as a lifelong diehard Indiana Jones fan, really appreciated. With some pictures of other characters and some pictures that Henry Jones had in his home in The Last Crusade. That was all very nice to see. And even though it's a bit of a shame that John Rhys Davies had a pretty small part in this movie, it was undeniably a lot of fun to see Salah back in these movies. Most of the movie feels like a classic Indiana Jones adventure. There's some classic discoveries made and some cool globetrotting. There are some very cool locations in this movie, some cool film sets. So a lot of it was very fun to watch. And it also has some pretty solid villains. You have Mads Mikkelsen, who of course played the villain in Casino Royale. And there even was a Dutch actor in this, Olivier Richter, aka the Dutch Giant. So while I like most of it, in the end towards the ending, there are some things that I wasn't completely on board for. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. And this is where I'm gonna get into some spoilers. And yeah, in this movie, the artifact that they find has something to do with time travel, and they even go back in time to ancient Greece, which on the one hand, some fans might really like, and of course, Indiana Jones is obsessed with history, but and I like history as well, but I don't need to see Indiana Jones go back in time towards the history. I just prefer it when Indy just finds something that is centuries or millenniums old. And yes, I know that the original trilogy has artifacts that did some pretty crazy stuff as well, but those were mostly tied to religions, and I actually believe in the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail. Well, I believe in their existence, not in the things that they do in these movies. But yeah, the original trilogy was mostly tied to religions, and Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny, they leaned more towards sci-fi, and I don't have any problem with time travel in concept, but I just didn't feel it fits that well in an Indiana Jones movie. But that's just my opinion. I know that there are some people that might really like that stuff, but personally it just wasn't for me. It didn't ruin the whole movie for me, like some other movies have some horrible endings that can ruin the entire experience. That wasn't the case in this movie, but I was like, I'm not sure that this belongs in an Indiana Jones movie. However, the final scene in this movie, that I really liked. When Indiana Jones is back from his adventure and another character from the original trilogy returns, Marion, who appeared in Raiders of the Lost Ark and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I really like that they solved their problems with each other, and it did make for a very heartfelt moment. But kind of how I feel about the sequels of Star Wars, I don't hate them like some people do, but how I feel about it is that Return of the Jedi and The Last Crusade wrapped those franchises up perfectly, so I'm still gonna see those movies as the actual ending of the series. So I don't hate Kingdom of the Crystal Skull either, and I liked this movie for the most part, but I'm still gonna see Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade as the ending of the Indiana Jones series. So in the end, I think this movie is about a 7 overall and a solid 7 on the entertainment scale. Like I was expecting, it was better than the fourth one, but not nearly as good as the perfection that was the original trilogy. So this is my take on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Comment down below your thoughts, and what I'd like to know is whether or not you grew up on Indiana Jones. I have loved these movies throughout my entire childhood from, I believe, age 6, and I'm now 20, so I've been watching these movies for 14 years now. But with that said, this is the end of this video, and I will see you later.